Okay, just going to wait a few seconds as the virtual room fills out. So just give it a kind of 30 seconds and then we'll get going, as we've got plenty to get through. I can see the number of participants ratcheting up. Welcome all. Fantastic. I think we've stabilized on the number of participants in the virtual room. So a warm welcome to this webinar on maximising the value from distributed energy resources in Great Britain, or GB. It's either afternoon or morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Ollie Frankland, and I'm a project manager at Regen. Regen are an independent not-for-profit based in the UK, and we're looking to accelerate the net zero transition. And we're a centre for energy market insight and energy expertise. And we've been working for several years now, looking at the networks in the UK, particularly with some of the kind of leading distribution network operators in the UK, trying to kind of make sure that they plan for this wave of new distributed energy resources coming on the system, and making sure that we plan accordingly and make sure that they are ready for that wave. So my role today is as chair to keep us to time and make sure that we get through the agenda, which is jam-packed today in an hour and a quarter. We've got plenty to get through, so I won't waste too much more of your time. So first off, we'll go through the agenda just so everyone's on the same page. So quick welcome from me. We'll then go straight in to Russell from the Department for Business and Energy and Industrial Strategy in the UK, or BEIS for short, and he'll give us a really good introduction on that will kind of set the scene really in terms of the debate around the Smart Systems and Flexibility Plan, one of the kind of the main documents that is driving the actions currently and in the future from an Ofgem and a BEIS perspective. So Ofgem, the energy regulator, and the department in the UK as well. So that's up front. We'll then move on to the Democracy Project case study. So Democracy is a kind of leading innovation project between the UK and Canada, putting together a kind of joint solution between the different companies across the UK and Canada. So we'll get a quick introduction to that case study and try and unpick some of the more technical details. The rest of the time is for questions and a panel discussion. So we've got 4 key people in the sector. Some are from the Democracy Project, and we've also got Stuart joining us from Western Power Distribution, one of the leading, if not the leading, DNO or distribution network operator in the UK. So we will try and get in as many as audience questions in that time as I possibly can, and we finish at 3:15. If I could just get the next slide, so just run through some housekeeping. You guys are obviously very well versed in the webinar format, but just in case you aren't, on the bottom panel, you've got everything you need there, but the main things to look for are the chat. So that's the discussion board for the session really. You can introduce yourself, you can share any content that you think is relevant to the discussion, and it helps to kind of have another conversation going apart from the one on the screen. So that use the Zoom chat function for that. The Q&A function, that is for direct questions for the speakers. So I'll be monitoring that very closely. So please do use that if you have any thoughts that you would like for us to cover during the session. So yes, use that Q&A function and uprate those that you are most interested in. So there'll be a list of questions, and you can kind of add your preference so it goes to the top of the list, and I'll make sure to try and include those in the discussion at the end. We've got some polls planned, and we hope to get to them during the time. And finally, there's a recording of this being made, and we will also share the slides. They'll be sent out either later on today or early tomorrow morning. We won't mess around with that, so we'll make sure that it's in your inbox so you can refer to it. So no need to kind of frantically scribble down notes or take screenshots. They'll be coming to your inbox very shortly. Okay, that's it from the introduction perspective. I will hand over to Russell from Bays to give us a kind of good starting point, a good introduction to the wonderful world of smart and flex. Russell.
Am I here? Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, I should be popping up, I hope. Am I popping up? I'm here. Okay, thank you, Ollie. Good afternoon, everybody, and I hope you're all well. I'm Russell Jenkins, and I lead on demand-side response, or DSR, policy in the Bays Smart Energy team, working alongside numerous others. I'm here, as Ollie was saying, to provide some high-level smart energy policy context to help frame your discussion today. So with that, and with the interest of time, I'm going to get cracking on with the slide. So as you know, in April this year, the government announced an ambitious climate change target to reduce emissions by 78% by 2035 compared with 1990 levels on our pathway to net zero. This means that significant volumes of additional generation and demand will be added to our electricity system as heat and transport are electrified, but potentially doubling by 2050. Technologies such as DSR, energy storage, interconnection, and smart charging of electric vehicles are essential to help balance supply and demand as we deploy more intermittent renewables to power our buildings and our vehicles. System flexibility is essential then to achieve the necessary reduction in emissions to net zero by 2050. And the new Smart Systems of Flexibility Plan, published jointly by us and the UK energy regulator Ofgem in July, sets out how we will facilitate the transition to a smart and more flexible energy system. A smart and flexible energy system will facilitate the integration of high volumes of low carbon power, heat and transport by matching energy from the wind and sun to those new sources of demand, and can harness energy assets across the system to do so. A smart and flexible approach reduces system costs, in part by reducing the amount of generation and network assets that need to be built to meet peak demand. It creates savings for consumers and enables greater control over energy bills through access to smart technologies and services. The transition to a smart and more flexible energy system is an opportunity. It can be delivered by UK businesses and will benefit consumers across the country. It can create nationwide jobs. We think possibly up to around 24,000 by 2050, and drive investment across UK. We consider the UK to be a global leader in smart systems, and there's significant export potential, we think, which could contribute as much as 2.7 billion per year to the economy by 2050. As nations confront the challenge of climate change, we can expect markets for new green products and services to develop around the world. So taking action now will help position UK companies and our research base to seize the opportunities which will flow from this, creating jobs and wealth, we hope, as part of that. So next slide, please. Yeah, so our modelling provides scenarios that indicate the scale of deployment that could be needed as we transition to net zero. I should note that due to uncertainty around system development, these figures shouldn't be seen as targets, and the analysis was completed prior to the announcement of the UK's carbon budget. We would expect faster and deeper decarbonisation to bring forward the need for flexibility, though we do not anticipate that the level of flexibility required by 2030 would be dramatically higher. We'll need to see a significant increase in flexibility in order to meet net zero, as the bar chart on the right shows. The analysis considered the scale of low carbon flexibility deployment that could be needed to ensure energy security as we transition to net zero, and the sources that could provide this flexibility. I'd note, for example, that our modelling shows that by 2050, around 30 gigawatts of combined short-term storage and flexible demand, plus 27 gigawatts of interconnection, leads to the lowest system cost. That gives you an idea of the scale that we're seeing. Increased flexibility provides significant cost savings, as I've mentioned. In the scenarios we've looked at, we've tested, increased system flexibility provided system cost reductions of up to 10 billion per year by 2050. Next slide, please. So our smart systems plan focuses on 5 areas to support the uptake of this flexibility: facilitating flexibility from consumers, storage and interconnection, flexibility markets, data and digitalisation, and a flexibility monitoring framework. So first then, my particular area of focus, we need to enable consumers to provide flexibility. Our core mission in the DSR policy space is to remove barriers to enable consumers of all sizes to participate in DSR and to support measures to increase participation in DSR. I should note that the vision extract on the slide is focused on smaller scale DSR. There's a well-established market for DSR from large consumers. And as I say, we want to support DSR from consumers of all sizes and types. And this is hopefully clear in our plan. We've got 4 distinct areas of focus for DSR policy, which hopefully build a picture. One is about supporting the technical potential for DSR at the device or asset level, mainly at the moment through appropriate regulation and technical standards. 2, it's about establishing the appropriate technical and regulatory arrangements for DSR, including the regulation of market actors that facilitate the provision of DSR. 3, it's about developing an appropriate approach to protecting consumers, so the right frameworks are in place to protect consumers that participate, but also to support participation from those that might otherwise struggle to do so, and to ensure those that cannot participate are not unduly penalised. And 4thly, it's about developing and embedding a culture of cybersecurity across the piece, giving consumers confidence to engage. On smart buildings, we'll continue to work with industry to incorporate flexibility and smart technologies into the relevant methodologies to assess energy and environmental performance of dwellings, both domestic and commercial. And we'll ensure that flexibility is considered across the full range of energy efficiency, fuel poverty, and heat subsidy schemes and market mechanisms. In a smart system, it's vital that electric vehicles are charged flexibly to manage system peaks and to help balance the system at an affordable cost to consumers. In future, EV owners may be able to use their car batteries to export electricity to where it's needed, for example, to support the grid, otherwise known normally as vehicle to grid. And we'll continue to work with the EV Energy Task Force to help ensure the electricity system maximises the opportunities presented by the transition to EVs. Next slide, please. So we'll need significant flexibility on the grid from interconnection and storage across all scales, from domestic to large scale long duration storage. We want to continue progress towards a best-in-class regulatory system and ensure a level playing field between different flexibility technologies. It's important that we ensure that there's clarity over the treatment of storage within the regulatory framework, and therefore the government remains committed to defining electricity storage as a distinct subset of generation in primary legislation when parliamentary time allows. One of the key barriers to deploying large-scale, long-duration storage is, of course, financing. Storage technologies at this scale have high upfront costs and can take longer to construct, or carry risks associated with investing in nascent technologies. So to address this, I just note that we've launched a major competition worth up to about 68 million, to accelerate the commercialisation of first-of-a-kind, longer-duration energy storage through the 1 billion net zero innovation portfolio. And then on the domestic and small scale storage side, that's still relatively nascent, and there's still some distortions and barriers impacting consumer uptake. Some households and businesses may choose to use their battery to provide flexibility services to the grid, and reforms to open up access to markets, as well as the introduction of local flexibility markets, are, we think, helping to facilitate that. So quickly, we want to enhance the role of interconnection as a flexibility asset. Interconnection delivers lower cost for consumers, enhances security supply, and supports the integration of low carbon generation sources. It provides access to a diverse pool of generation, allowing the import and export of cheaper electricity by responding to changes in market signals. And so to realise our vision of an increased level of interconnection, it's important to ensure the right tools and flexibility services are in place. It'll be equally important for the government and Ofgem to support development of more efficient cross-border market arrangements taking place closer to real time. Next slide, please. So we need to reform markets so that flexibility is rewarded for the value it provides to the system. This means improving market design and coordination so that flexibility providers can secure revenues across multiple markets. In recent years, there's been a significant growth in the value and importance of markets and signals, including the balancing mechanism, ancillary services, and local markets for flexibility. The ESO is undergoing significant reforms to its balancing services to enable the transition to a sustainable energy system. We're conscious that the contracts for difference scheme doesn't factor in all system needs and could be causing costs to rise elsewhere. Therefore, we'll continue to consider how best to strike the balance between supporting investment in essential generation technology and incentivizing efficient behaviours at the system level. Additionally, we intend to return to some of the issues and improvements identified through the 5-year review of the capacity market, particularly those that help ensure the capacity market is better aligned with our net zero ambitions. And across all markets, we must identify and address potential gaps in carbon policies. The carbon intensity of flexibility markets is intrinsically connected to operation investment signals from the wider market framework, meaning that for us, the issue must be approached holistically. Next slide, please. So we need to digitalize the energy system. Energy system digitalization enables millions of assets to be optimized, from solar panels, heat pumps, and electric vehicles to network infrastructure and control systems. The energy digitalization strategy sets out a vision and suite of actions to overcome these barriers and to spur innovation and competition, to facilitate new consumer offers and reduce the cost of decarbonisation. The strategy delves into the urgent need for and the benefits of digitalising the energy system. It provides an update on how far we've come since the Energy Data Task Force made its recommendations. It discusses the barriers that the sector continues to face, outlines a strategic approach to addressing those barriers, and identifies a series of actions for the government, Ofgem, and industry to provide, that provides a vision and direction that the sector has called for. And we're also supporting an energy digitalisation task force in that space. Our approach at a high level in addressing the barriers is categorised in 3 core themes: leadership and coordination, incentivising change, and developing digital solutions. So the final slide. Okay, so to be effective, smart energy policy needs to adapt to an evolving system. A robust and systematic monitoring framework is a tool for identifying the changes in the market and understanding how smart and flexible technologies are progressing. It will help us to know how much flexibility is coming forward and how it performs in markets, what barriers exist to flexible technology participation in the energy market, whether we're on the right trajectory, and if the government and Ofgem needs to take further or indeed different action. Monitoring can help us to identify both where flexibility is successfully performing in markets and where barriers still exist. Having a comprehensive set of monitoring data will allow us to spot future policy challenges early on and provide the evidence base for effective future policy design. We've chosen a set of indicators that cover 2 broad areas, namely the development of flexibility technologies and the participation of flexibility technologies in markets. Our indicators must adapt, of course, to the changing landscape as energy markets develop. Monitoring will need to keep pace with those changes. So we'll review the indicators prior to data collection to ensure that they remain fit for purpose as new markets develop and new data becomes available. So that's the end of my whistle-stop tour of the Smart Systems Plan. I think I've just about kept to time. I hope that was useful, but I would of course urge you all to read the full plan at your leisure. It's available at gov.uk via all good search engines. Ollie's popped up, which means it's the end of my bit. I have to shoot off to another commitment, but I'm just going to say that Ollie's going to capture all questions or comments that you have and send them over to me after the event. So I hope you have a great session. It looks very, very, very interesting indeed. Hopefully see you again. And with that, I'm going to hand back over to Ollie. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Russell. As I say, a really useful whistle-stop tour. I would thoroughly recommend, if you're going to read anything, read that monitoring framework annex at the end of the Smart Systems Flexibility Plan. It's a really good read as to kind of the current progress and then where the teams are going to be monitoring over the next few years. So thank you very much, Russell. And yeah, a reminder, we are going to be capturing those questions and sending them to Russell and the Bayes Smart team. So please do keep them coming in on the Q&A function, and also a reminder to uprate those that you like or like them. There's kind of just a little like button. So for those that you are interested in hearing an answer to, like those as much as you possibly can. That would be very useful for me as chair to gauge things. Fantastic. Okay, so we've had an introduction and a lay of the land, and now we're going to kind of try and to ground the discussion a bit in a case study and look at the Democracy project specifically. But before we delve into the technical detail, we're just going to get kind of a quick introduction from some of the senior representatives of those companies, just so that we're aware of who are the key companies in this project. Firstly, if I just wait for the slide to load, I'll hand over to Vince to give a quick introduction to Bracebridge Generation and Lakeland Holdings in general. Over to you, Vince.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. So thank you for joining us today. I'm Vince Kolchecki. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Lakeland Holding and the affiliate companies Lakeland Power Distribution, Bracebridge Generation, and Lakeland Energy. Over the past 2 years, it's been a pretty exciting journey working with our partners, Opus One Solutions, Kiwi Power, and Natural Resources Canada. Our team at Lakeland includes Jennifer Montpetit. She's a manager of advanced planning. Peter Ewald, project technical lead, who is also speaking here today, and Marjorie McDonald, who's our project process lead. Many thanks as well to Western Power Distribution Limited for observing our project and offering their expertise along the way. Natural Resources Canada Power Forward Challenge made this possible. This project sits perfectly within their mission for companies to design better power grids, connect the UK and Canada to clean, user-friendly grids, and to help prevent power outages. Looking at disruptive technologies to develop, maintain, and maximize our power grids and energy system. With our companies, Lakeland Holding, it includes all our affiliates. So Lakeland Energy, it's a pretty diverse company that does everything from streetlight maintenance and installations to hot water tank rentals. We also have a fiber optic network that offers 2 GB symmetrical internet with a whole IT team. Lakeland Power Distribution Network, which is a local distribution company with about 15,000 customers in Amalgam, Muskoka, and Parry Sound. And Bracebridge Generation, who's leading this project. We have 9 water power plants in Ontario. We have 1 in Quebec. We have a solar farm and a battery, a grid scale battery. That's a good summary of who we are and what we're doing, and we're excited to continue moving through the completion of the Democracy project.
Perfect, thanks, Vince. That was a great overview. I'll hand over to Josh from Opus One. Josh.
Hey, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josh Wong. I'm the founder and CEO of Opus One Solutions. So thank you, Vince and the team. Vince have given a great introduction, and equally thank you for the entire consortium for a wonderful project. I think this is first in kind, and this is setting a perfect example of where the industry is going in terms of flexibility and flexibility markets. Opus One Solutions, we are a Toronto-based, Ontario-based, but also international company. Focused on software solutions for electric power utilities, mostly on the DNO to DSO transformation. Fundamentally, we assist the DNOs towards a DSO by actively managing distributed energies on the grid, maintaining grid safety, reliability, resiliency, security, and affordability. We take that grid awareness and grid coordination of energy management, and we bring that towards market enablement in the form of flexibility, or sometimes we call it transactive energy markets. So pleasure to share more about who we are, and Kushal will be presenting the experiences learned from the project, and excited to speak with you today and answer some of your questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Josh. And finally, Brendan from a Kiwi Power perspective.
Thanks, Ollie, and good afternoon to all of you. So my name is Brendan Walters. I am the chairman of Kiwi Power. Kiwi Power is one of the leading actors in the VPP, virtual power plant space. We have more than 10 years of experience in that space, and we are based in the UK, but we're also active in continental Europe, the US, and Japan. I think, like many around the table, we see the use of flexibility provided by distributed energy resources as a key enabler of the energy transition. And as Kiwi Power, we see it as our mission to try to simplify for all of the actors involved the monetization of distributed energy resources in power markets. And in order to do so, we deploy our technology, our platform, which is called Kiwi Core, and our expertise. Would maybe also add that as Kiwi, we believe we have built up a specific expertise in working with DNOs as a result of our partnership with Western Power Distribution in the UK. And from there, with all but one of the DNO groups active in Great Britain. And that collaboration, that partnership has resulted in building an innovative platform which enables the DNOs to offer a joint and consistent flexibility program across their control areas. And clearly, that experience was very useful in working with Lakeland Power on the DEMOCRASI project. The DEMOCRASI project was an excellent project for Kiwi to work on, because in general terms, we like partnerships and we believe in interoperability. And through the DEMOCRASI project, we believe we've been able to demonstrate the complementarity between Kiwi as a VPP player and Opus One as a DERMS provider, and thereby enabling the co-optimization of both the market or the monetization vector and the physical networks vector. And I'm sure that the speakers during the case study will develop that aspect in much more detail.
Perfect. Thank you, Brendan. So we've heard from the kind of key companies involved in the Democracy Project, and now we're going to kind of delve into the technical detail a little bit more and hand over to Kushal from Opus One, who will start off, and then we'll move through some of the other players in the project. Kushal.
Thank you, Ollie. Good day, everybody. Welcome. Hope everybody can hear me okay. Thank you for joining the presentation, and thank you for learning more about our democracy project. Next slide, please. So in today's presentation, we will walk you through the background and the problem statement, the reason why we designed the project, the approach that we took to deliver the project, the outcomes that we uncovered during our journey in delivering, as well as how the outcomes tie in bringing in the value and maximizing the value from DERs. Next slide, please. Democracy, dispatchable energy market optimized constrained real-time aggregated system interface. It is a mouthful, but please bear with me as we unpack the unique innovation that went behind the project. The key actors or the key roles in the project are the aggregator role, which is just a word for single or multiple DERs or multiple aggregators. The customers are flexible energy and energy resource owners, or which are domestic or industrial as well, and the utility, which is the distribution network operator, the distribution system operator, or a local distribution company in the North American context. Next slide, please. So as we mentioned in the previous section of the presentation, the key problem statement that we are trying to address, as covered by Russell, were regarding the TSO-DSO, like ESO-DNO or TSO-DSO coordination, as well as the lack of visibility to the local distribution company. When the flexible service providers or DERs participate in a wholesale market without the visibility of the DNO, It causes grid instability, asset degradation, and thereby leads to higher capital expenditures borne by the LDC, which are in turn borne by the consumers. Secondly, equality of access to the distribution network also is a problem statement, where we are trying to address the utility curtailing DERs or flexible service providers in order to maintain grid stability. What this then brings us into our solution statement, where we provide, as through the project and through the solution, try to provide increased visibility to the LDCs, increased coordination for DSO, DNO, ESO coordination, as well as empowering the LDC to maximize the local flexibility services and constraints via dispatch of DERs that are not being utilized for bulk services. Next slide, please. In order to deliver the project, we had to create a joint solution. The joint solution is between Opus One and Kiwi Power, where each of the companies are providing a unique set of software capabilities: GridOS, which is an optimization engine, and Kiwi Core, which is a market as well as a user interaction or orchestration system. Next slide, please. So in the next slide, we'll actually explore what the joint solution looks like and what the solution architecture is going to look like. It has been grouped into three main components. On the left, from left to right, it's the network or the field trial, everything that is required from the data perspective. On the center is the optimization of everything. And the third group is the final dispatch or the last mile and the orchestration and coordination between markets and the end devices. As you can see, Lakeland Power, as a utility, has access to a very unique set of data, which is the network model, the SCADA, customer engagement, and all of that. All of that data is then passed on to GridOS for calculation of optimized asset dispatch schedules, which are constraint-aware. These constraint-aware schedules are then passed on to the orchestrators, which are then bid into the market, and after market clearing, they are executed and dispatched to the end resource or the end device. That's a very high-level overview of solution architecture, and I will pass on to Peter Ewald that will take us to the next slide. I apologize. I think I'm going to pass on to Mike. Sorry.
Thank you, Kushal. Yeah. The markets. I'm going to consider the wholesale market that we are operating in. The team took into consideration the policy, regulation, market entry criteria, and available resources and that we would be needing. And this pointed us at the Ontario capacity auction as the best fit. The nearest parallel in the UK would be DA Store at this point in time, which didn't exist when we first started. This allowed the majority of our available resources to participate. However, the commitment periods for the whole program fall outside of the project timeframe, so we had to simulate the market. But it does provide us a path to commercialization beyond the project. So the capacity auction market. This is run by the Independent Electricity System Operator in Ontario, created in 2019, and it enables them to acquire cost-effectively energy and capacity to manage their supply-demand dynamics. The capacity auction allows participation of 4 classes of eligible resources, including physical hourly demand responses, virtual hourly demand resources, which are residential, and virtual hourly demand resources, which are commercial and industrial. They also include dispatchable loads. Like many programs of this type, it has a number of two obligation periods, summer and winter. I'm not going to discuss the logistics of registering for the market and the auction process, or even registration and bidding. What I will suffice to say is that under our simulation, most aspects were ignored apart from following any asset eligibility rules, any asset aggregation rules. And we made the assumption that assets would meet the entry criteria and there would be successful bidding in the CA. Next slide, please. This process represents the concurrent co-optimization made available by the joint product solution. We have the whole market participation stream at the top, where you can look at asset availability, load generation, baselines. You can move on to looking at bid submission, where we update bids that are already submitted to the market in the day-ahead market by 8 a.m. the day ahead. We interact with the market. We receive standby notices and activation notices, and subsequently we can dispatch assets to meet the capacity obligations that we have. This is followed in the long term by measurement and verification, submitting meter readings to the market for verification, and settlements, which will require compensation and/or any fines you may have to pay. But in parallel to that, we have the local flexibility service participation. And you can see the red arrow, which shows the point at which we can actually flip between the two. And this would allow you, having looked at your asset availability and load generation, to decide, do we go flex or wholesale? Now, key to that is GridOS's optimization process, which we'll discuss next. But in making the decision, we have prioritized the wholesale market over the local flexibility market in this model. But it allows us, if we cannot meet the wholesale market constraints, to flip into a local peak shaving flexibility scenario, and therefore schedule and dispatch assets locally to meet local peak shaving demands. Next slide, please. I'm now going to hand over to Peter Ewald, who will talk about the assets that were used in the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. For this project, we leveraged existing Bracebridge generation owned and operated DER and IoT assets managed by the Opus One DERMS. These include a grid-scale battery energy storage system, 2-hour Tesla Megapack rated at 1.25 megawatts, 2.5 megawatt hours. A residential battery energy storage system fleet consisting of 10 Tesla Powerwalls, aggregated total of 50 kilowatts at 135 kilowatt hours. A residential hot water heater control fleet representing a total of 150 kilowatts of load, and an EV charger network consisting of 3 level 2 chargers and a single level 3 DC fast charger. Secondly, we aggregated 2 additional industrial assets from the town of Parry Sound, managed by Kiwi Fruit devices. These included a 750 kilowatt diesel generator at a wastewater treatment facility, as well as a 350 kilowatt diesel generator at a sewage pumping station. With the addition of these assets, we now covered all potential user groups from residential, commercial, and industrial. Next slide, please. Finally, and key to the project is the network model. As you can see on this diagram, we have a simplified network model. While no small task for a small utility, this asset modeling was paramount to project success. I do want to highlight 2 additional DERs on this network that were not part of the project, the solar and hydro facilities. While not part of the project, these assets came into play on the network model and network conditions affecting safe dispatch of other assets. I will now hand back to Kushal to discuss the optimization.
Thank you, Peter. Next slide, please. Hope everybody can still hear me okay. So in the next section, once we have discovered the market, rules, market, and we have also uncovered the assets, the next step for us is to put a software solution together, also identify the optimization objectives for bulk market participation or wholesale market participation, which is bid update and bid activation, and then the optimization objectives necessary for local flexibility, which is peak shaving objective that we will be uncovering today. Next slide, please. So as described previously, as a joint product, a lot of the key software features were brought together by both teams, Kiwi Power and Opus One. Some of the key features that are highlighted in the joint solution are integration with the ISO or the bulk system, which is using the bulk market adapter, the orchestration layer between the bulk market adapter as well as the user interface that allows dispatch and monitoring of DERs and flexibility resources, the optimization objective, which is handled by Grid OS on the backend side, which includes objectives such as bid update activation or peak shaving, forecasting for load and generation, integrating with utility source systems as well, using communication protocols. Next slide, please. So as described earlier, to avoid constraints on the distribution system and allow more participation of flexible energy resources in the bulk market, we needed to expand the boundaries of the distribution system so more DERs can participate. Also, the TSO-DSO coordination was also a problem statement that we wanted to solve. The bid update objective optimization, or the operating envelope optimization, is aimed to solve this problem, where the operating envelope is, in simple words, are basically identify the swim lanes for any DER or flexible energy resource in which they should be operating. In essence, they are the min and the max dispatch limits for market resources that guide them to develop their bid for market participation without causing any constraints on the local distribution grid. As simple as it may sound, the optimizations are fairly complex and are carried out with our optimization engine using three-phase unbalanced online real-time power flow. This also includes optimizations to calculate maximum export from market resources, as well as maximum import from market resources. Now, in addition to bulk market participation, we also have flexibility objectives. Next slide, please. In terms of the flexibility market or the local flexibility objectives, we can do peak shaving, volt-hour optimization, demand management, etc., and a wide variety of things. For the project and field trials, we chose to implement peak shaving. Peak shaving is a well-known concept in the distribution utility world, where it is basically a non-wires alternative methodology utilized by DNOs, DSOs, or LDCs to achieve benefits such as capital deferral, demand management, lowering cost, etc. And it basically can be used by anybody. And the uniqueness of our optimization engine doing it better is that it also, while doing peak shaving, also maintains grid reliability and grid constraints. Basically, it maintains the constraints caused by power or voltage or current, etc. Peak shaving is, for the lack of a better word, flattening the curve, where you're taking the peaks and distributing them into valleys. That's it from my side on the optimization side of things. Now, Peter Ewald will walk us through the operational field trials.
Thank you, Kushal. So to test our solution, we ran an operational pilot over 45 days and simulated 15 separate scenarios, as shown here on our schedule calendar. We simulated different permutations of assets and combinations of one or both markets. Next slide, please. After the user training and onboarding sessions, using the Kiwi core user interface, we were able to easily coordinate and manage the daily asset availability for each program, the bulk market and local flexibility. Once fully tested, user operation just became a new daily task. Scheduling was easy, monitoring the dispatch was easy, analyzing the data was easy. Coordinating with asset owners did have some challenges, particularly generators, as these sites are critical infrastructure. Next slide, please. Definitely lessons learned during this operational pilot. As you can imagine, integrating two software packages and creating a new orchestrator would, as expected, bring some challenges. But our ability to quickly identify root causes and resolve the issues showed that good teamwork pays off, and that a systematic response with a daily stand-up call was vital. Forecasting, a lot of assumptions were made based on our ability to forecast generation and load levels. While our forecast worked, more development work needed here to provide the best possible dispatch results. We did have an interesting scenario where the optimization engine determined we could not dispatch because of local grid conditions. This exact scenario is a power factor violation. This was caused by our hydro facility exporting at a high level and the feeder loading being at a low level. This resulted in a loss of current flow through the relay at the feeder head end. power factor calculations require the current flow. So this led to the power factor violation, thereby causing strange readings and canceling our dispatch. Now I'll hand back to Mike to discuss the technology components.
Thank you, Peter. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go into the technical detail that Kushal covered, but I will talk about the technological components or components that enabled a lot of this. Flexible service was enabled mainly by the orchestrator. This was a feature we built to orchestrate all the services and processes required to run, in effect, 2 sets of optimizations. Energy flexibility provides a triple win of carbon reduction, grid resiliency, and additional revenue to energy asset owners. But to access that, you really need to balance off a lot of different things. And controlling various loads and generation resources is part of that. Interacting with them using multiple communication interfaces is part of that. Compensating variable renewable energy generation is a significant part of that. A flexibility service in the UK, there's been lots of information printed about it, has the same requirements. And it's all about how do we unlock the value of these assets that currently have so much potential. Looking at data-enabled value creation, and you need to think of it in terms of, okay, there's a lot of data available, but what does it actually mean? And this requires a level of situational awareness. You're acquiring data. Bracebridge had a lot of SCADA equipment. We have Kiwi Fruit, which we can attach to various devices. And Grid OS is running a variety of information acquisition facilities. So this level of situational awareness is significant, and it creates an abstract representation of real life and a view of the availability of resources. It gives us an ability to manage them. It gives us a view of the consumption and storage and historical data that can actually give you relevant forecasts. What's also important is to monitor the wholesale market interactions, the standby, the activation, dispatch in the UK, and measurements, meter readings. That, coupled with optimizations and real-time monitoring, enable you to really manage the value that you're trying to unlock in this process. All of this should not be put in place without relevant cybersecurity and audit. And that includes market audit requirements and also ISO 27000 on relevant network devices. Next slide, please. Interoperability, I will just touch on briefly. It required a focus with the challenges of the time that we had. In the context of COVID, we had an international project that was trying to integrate all these applications together, and regular open communication was key. We have cloud-based platforms, IoT devices, and aggregation, third-party aggregation services. All of this is key. But it all came together, and we got it all to work. Next slide, please. So in summarizing, maximizing value from DERs. This project, the Democracy Solution, uses the LDC network to optimally dispatch assets, balancing the bulk and local needs. The solution provides LDCs, DNOs, with visibility over participating assets, while also enabling them to procure local flexibility services from wholesale markets participating resources, as mentioned earlier. So we're empowering the gatekeepers. This is one of the world's first utility implementations of an optimization engine and DERs with optimal power flow integrated. So we're empowering utilities to be able to plan, operate, optimize, and create new business models, particularly the DNOs and LDCs, and closing the gap between them and the TSOs. So these new models, these new value stacks unlock the revenue opportunities reduce the capital expenditures, and facilitate non-wires alternatives. The increased visibility of asset utilization can only improve your asset health. Next slide, please. I think at this point, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you all for listening to us, and to Regen for the opportunity for us to present our project. It's difficult to present 2 years in 20 minutes, but thank you very much.
You guys have done a great job. Yeah, so we covered a lot of ground there. A lot of technical detail, which I like, getting into the nuts and bolts and power factors and all that glorious stuff. So hopefully that was useful for those listening as well. And yeah, a reminder, we'll send around the slides, because there was, as I said, a lot of detail in those slides. So there's a lot of value in those slides. That was great. Thank you for those the technical leads going through the Democracy project. The rest of the time we have available, we're just going to spend in a panel session. So we've got some questions. Thank you for those that are who have provided questions. Please do continue to uprate them or like them during that. Using the Q&A platform. I will try and get through as many as we possibly can, given our the time available. I think we've got 25 minutes left. We should be able to get through a fair whack of them. So that's brilliant. Fantastic. Okay, so we've had a few, just to kind of explain the panel, we've had a substitution on the Kiwi front. So we've got Tom Jennings coming in as head of optimization from Kiwi Power, and we've also got Stuart, who's been added from Western Power Distribution. They're the two newbies, so maybe I'll just give them a quick minute to introduce themselves, and you know Vince and Josh already from their introductions in this session. So Tom first.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the introduction there, Ollie. So very briefly, my role at Kiwi Power is head of optimization. So the objective there is, as I think Mike so eloquently put it, is to sort of ensure that all of the assets that we have under our management are up, running, and optimized, so earning the maximum amount of value for the owner of those assets. And everything sort of goes back to the point that Brendan made in his introduction around we are here to simplify distributed energy resources. So what we're looking to do is take those distributed energy resources and make it as simple as possible to maximize the revenue that they can achieve in the market. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. And Stuart.
Good afternoon, everybody. So Stuart Fowler at Western Power Distribution. So I tend to run most of our innovation projects where it's got something to do with flexibility, and in part before I joined Western Power, I worked on the phase 1 of the platform development for Cornwall local energy market at Centrica. So I have a bit of a background in doing stuff around flex, and so in taking over our flex projects, I was asked to sort of get involved in reviewing some of the democracy stuff. That's me. Perfect. Thanks, Stuart.
Okay, I'll just get cracking into the questions then. So I think the first question I had in mind was, why is this project so important to your organization? So if I quickly pick on Vince first, and then maybe go to Josh after that, and perhaps Tom as well. But Vince first, in terms of why democracy, why is this area so important?
Well, part of our company is a distribution company, so a power distribution company as well. And it's more than evident to us that the adoption of electric vehicles, the adoption of electrification in some method, even things like solar shingles, it's all going to introduce a bunch of new assets that we need to be able to control, and there's going to be monetization that's going to happen with those. So I think we want to get ahead of the curve, figure out what we're going to do when these assets start getting connected, and possibly be a catalyst or encourage people to go down that path.
Brilliant. Completely agree with that. Josh.
Yeah, I think this all traces back to who we are, what we stand for as the mission of the organization. Like our Opus One's purpose is to enable basically 100% renewables on our energy system as a part of the energy transition. And what we realize is that as much as there's great innovation happening on the distributed resources side with the solar, electric vehicles, storage, etc., the grid remains the platform for distributed energy. And to do that, we need to secure the grid, both technically in terms of like all the power flows, all the technical elements of maintaining grid reliability, resiliency, but also in terms of the economic side. And so the best way of control and maintaining resiliency, reliability that we learned from the wholesale side is through market signals. And I think that's what enables both technical and economic sustainability as we achieve an environmental sustainable future. So I think we don't have a lot of time. I think most jurisdictions have 8-9 years before they need to reach some type of incredible clean energy target, and we want to unlock that piece of the puzzle with the electrical grid.
Great, thanks, Josh. Tom.
So, as Brendan alluded to earlier, our focus, our vision is to simplify distributed energy resources. And the project really spoke to both our sort of core solutions that Kiwi Power provide. And those are around sort of demand side management. So the actual assets themselves, providing the flexibility, and the innovative work that we've done around local grid management solutions. And I'll sort of lean on Stuart to pick up some of that side of things. But what this really did was it allowed us to show how easy it can be to connect distributed energy resources to the network, and how easy it can be to then monetize those distributed energy resources. And I think this really spoke to the point that Russell was making earlier around sort of BESS and the movement forward, and that sort of evolution that we're seeing around like the need for more and more flexibility. So the easier that we can make flexibility to sort of to monetize and get access to the network, more and more we can support that transition, that move to a sort of renewable net zero. And so from our point of view, what this really does for us is a real proof of concept, is a real proof that what Kiwi is working towards around sort of simplification works, and fundamentally why it is so important that Kiwi achieve that goal of simplifying distributed energy resources, giving people the opportunity to monetize their assets, and providing that flexibility to National Grid and the various different system operators globally, to allow them to facilitate the move to a renewable network.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. I'll ask you a follow-up question on that in just a second, if I may, Tom. But Stuart, if I come to you now, it's just maybe because of being from a DSO in the UK, or DNO, however you want to say it, and you've worked on other projects that are similar to Democracy. How do you see the lay of the land in terms of how does Democracy compare to other projects that are out there? And yeah, quick point on that would be great.
So as probably many of you know, I think most DNOs have been undertaking a number of projects over the last probably decade or more. So at WPD we've done Falcon, Entire, a variety of projects. But what I think is key for me is that because at the moment we still don't know what the ultimate solution is here to get to market, because as I always say to anybody that asks, I probably bore a lot of people to death about it, is what we're talking about here is behavioural change by consumers, regardless of whether they're domestic or whatever. And of course, as a DNO, we don't have that relationship with the consumer. All we can do is send out signals. What's the best way for us to get our signals out? And we've tested some stuff, and some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. That's innovation. And the thing for me is, well, what has everybody else tried? And I think all that we will probably do with the Democracy thing is put it into a pot of stuff and say, right, which is the one that's actually, or the set of solutions that are actually going to provide us with the most effective routes to market.
Thanks, Stuart.
Answer the question?
Perfectly, as always. So I think then we're kind of getting to the point of maximizing value. So, and then understanding where that value sits, I suppose, as well. So, and I think it relates to a question that's been mentioned from Rosanna, which I think is hitting the nail on the head, is kind of, where does that value currently lie, and where does the value kind of move to in the future? So, and have we got those kind of values right broadly? Is kind of, and the signals right, which are kind of relating to that. So, perhaps, yeah, if I go to Tom first, and in terms of kind of you've got a good view of all of the different markets and services available. So perhaps if I give you to Tom.
Yeah, it'd be a pleasure. So from Kiwi Power's point of view, I think the important point is that we are agnostic to the underlying asset. Fundamentally, what we do is we provide a route to dispatch an asset into the market. So that from that point of view, we sort of got as you rightly point out, Ollie, we have a visibility across every single market and all the various different asset types. Now, what we're seeing in today is that the greatest amount of value sits across the sort of energy storage piece, and fundamentally that's to do with the complexity of the assets and the speed of the response. And I think that's the point I'd really like to pick on with regards to sort of the value associated with the assets. Is the value associated with the asset is really inherent within the sort of the functionality of that asset. So can it provide a sub 1 second response in a frequency market, or alternatively, can it provide a long-term drop in demand to sort of take account of a drop in generation? So from our point of view, it's about providing the system operator, be that the DSO or the ESO, whatever it might be, the visibility of the assets that they have available to them. And in providing them the visibility of the assets that they have available to them, ensuring that they are sort of then in a position to be able to dispatch the right asset for the right scenario. So from that particular point in time, we've recently seen sort of a real spike in the UK in prices. Now, that price has happened on a day ahead basis, and so everybody has sort of got 24 hours to prepare for that. So you know it's going to come. So you know it's almost a sort of regardless of the asset type, everybody can react to it, and through the sort of pricing, dispatch, etc., available with Kiwi Core, assets are able to do that. Now, then you've got also on the flip side of that, you've got a sudden sort of drop in frequency courtesy of a large loss of load, and then that instantaneous response. And it's all to do with sort of how you price the a requirement at any one particular point in time. And I think what we're going to see as we see the network evolve is that we're going to see different scenarios require different assets at different points in time. And it's going to be interesting to sort of, as the market sort of works out what's the most economical solution to this, and therefore what's the most economical asset. And Kiwi will be sitting there waiting to dispatch the relevant asset into that relevant scenario. I was slightly sort of around the houses, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, that definitely does. I suppose then from another perspective, Josh, from a kind of optimization angle, which is kind of what your platform does, is optimizes the control, I suppose, and how those decisions get made, perhaps. And I think it kind of alludes to the question here around how do we prioritize low carbon renewable sources of electricity or flexibility, particularly. Have you got any kind of thoughts on how you do that, or how you do that already, perhaps, Josh?
Yeah, I think tying this, that's a great question, and thank you for that. Just tying this question with the previous one as well, like we see value of DERs, including economic value as well as environmental value, in two lenses, right? One is tapping or enabling the DNOs or the networks to maximize market participation by protecting the limits of operation. So understanding, as Kushal was saying, the swim lanes, the operating envelopes, that's a technical optimization so that DERs can be free to participate to the maximum extent on the wholesale market that the DNOs allow. But there's the other angle to it, which is when we participate, or when assets participate on the wholesale market, they are mostly tapping into wholesale market values. So while we are understanding that with non-wire solutions or various type of asset deferrals, flexibility or intelligent controls become a far more economical way of dispatching assets on local distribution systems as well. And that's the reason for local flexibility markets. And I think Opus One is involved in a number of those. But the optimization for local energy markets is the same thing, but again, double-sided. One side is enabling maximum participation in local energy markets, alleviating constraints, being clear about constraints. but the other is also mining local values. So even with, let's say, Vince and other projects that we've been doing, we are actually calculating similar to a distribution location marginal pricing, which is looking at distribution level values based on distribution level power flows to defer distribution level capacity or provide various distribution level services. So that's a pricing signal generated from distribution system parameters. And for that, we actually tied in carbon in one of our projects with National Grid US on the New York REV side, Reforming Energy Vision side. And then I think for UK, we've had Project Merlin as well, where we are actually teamed up to do carbon simulations to see how that value, that carbon offset can play out when we do flexibility planning. So I think that's where carbon comes in. I think if the market accepts a pricing, I think I'm going to use Tom's word, we'll be ready for it.
Excellent. That's good to know. I suppose I think this is something we're very keen on every time we're doing a bit of work in terms of how you put in kind of low carbon and focus on those low carbon sources, because I think there has been perhaps a history of high carbon gas peakers and diesel peakers getting some of the contracts. But I'll move to kind of maybe a utility perspective on that. I think I'll continue with that same vein in question, kind of where does the value sit, and have we got it right? If I go to Stuart first and then go to Vince. Stuart.
Yeah, but so I'll answer the second question first, if I may. So have we got it right? I don't think we've done nowhere near enough testing of, you know, what's the most optimal market model. You know, we've done a number of projects. We've got one on the go at the moment, Intraflex, where we're doing it nearer real time. You know, and from my point of view, I don't think we're near that point where we understand quite what the, if you like, what the price points are. So I suppose from a practical point of view, where does the value sit? I think what we need to be able to do, I believe, is we need to test once and for all the opportunity to stack revenues, because in some respects, you know, our trials have had modest levels of participation because they're trials and they're discrete within a particular CMZ or whatever that might be. And of course, because all we're doing is testing the ability for us to price discover in Milton Keynes or, you know, wherever it might be, you know, we haven't tested whether or not a battery can sell some services to National Grid, sell some stuff to us, you know, blah, 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 blah. And of course, that will help, you know, markets. So I personally, I think that's what's next. We need to move to the next level in order to be able to see, well, where does the value sit? Because I just don't think we've got to that point where we fully understand it. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, definitely does. Vince, maybe from a kind of another point of view, maybe if I just change the question slightly. So one of the kind of issues is around kind of liquidity, i.e. have we got the assets there to deliver these services that we actually need? And I suppose Democracy and the sister project Speedia, I believe, has kind of solved that by having some assets that you can use. I suppose, how do you see that kind of problem changing over the future? Do you see we're going to get enough assets in order to deliver these services, or is it going to be need stronger value and price signals in order to get those assets set up? If you could have a go from Vince, and then I might come to Tom as well from a kind of a wider perspective. Thanks.
Yeah, so I guess on going down that road, we need to encourage people to have the assets that we can control. But the one thing this project's going to give us is the visibility of what's going on now and visibility in the future of what assets are out there that we can control. So if you look at the hot water tanks that we rent as a small little hot water tank rental company, it equates to about 5.5 megawatts of controllable load. It's a lot of, and that's not very many tanks. It's what it is. So other things like an in-home battery, where there could be a benefit to somebody picking that over a gas generator set to have some resiliency, and being able to aggregate and dispatch them means that there might be a payback model for them. So instead of the battery looking like the more expensive option, the other options that it can provide with resiliency and protection can also be dispatched to offer credit back potentially to the customer in the future. And that same thing goes with EVs. I mean, that you can have a discounted rate for energy, maybe at midnight, the rate drops and it gets cheaper so people can charge their cars then. But if everybody turns their cars on at midnight, we have another problem coming on when the one neighbor goes, hey, that's a pretty cool car you got next door, and then they buy the same car and so on, and we end up with another issue. So having visibility and then some control sets that we can put in place is going to give us a more resilient grid, and the payback models, for the people that invest in the assets that we can control.
Just quickly, Ollie, I think one thing is probably worth saying is that I think certainly from a Western Power point of view, and particularly from a Stuart point of view, I don't see a world where we're controlling assets. So, I don't see us sending a message to Jean from Bodmin to her EV for it to drop down. That's supplier stroke aggregator. Our market is structured in a particular way. So from my point of view, and it's just worth making the point, I don't see WPD going out and switching people on and off. That's not our job.
Yes, from my side, I think that's a great point, Stuart. It's the question that then comes from the aggregator, the point where the decision maker, who's going to dispatch that. It then comes down to the economic decision, and ultimately, is it worth Jean's while turning her EV off at that particular point in time? And from that,
exactly, Tom, exactly.
And and I think this is the important point. Is this is is that we can give everyone access. We can give everyone the ability to do this, but ultimately we've got to drive the drive the behaviour, and fundamentally that's going to be done through prices, and ultimately making sure that they see the value in the action that they're going to be taking. So from our side of things, we're busy driving down the ease with which to access it. And then ultimately we're pushing everybody else out there saying, well, hold on, you've got all this amazing flexibility available to you. Now you've got to give them the incentive to make sure that they're offering that flexibility up. And then, going back to the point Josh was making earlier, that we move towards a net zero, and this becomes a green network because we've got the flexibility there to support it.
And I think that's why the consumer engagement piece is really, really important. Customers got to understand what's in it for them, because somebody makes the point in WPD a lot to me. Your average customer pays us about £100 a year in DUOS. We're not going to pay out £150 a year for them to shift their load. But of course, if they're doing other things within the home, they've got a bit of battery and a bit of PV, and they've got a nice Samsung fridge, or whatever it might be. These all might stack up, and it might well be that they can earn an attractive amount of money. But we're not. I think this is one of the issues: is we're not there yet, because we've not got to the point where consumers have been engaged in what a flexible energy system actually means.
Fair point, Stuart. I think maybe just got a couple of minutes left, so I think I'll go to the final question, if I may. So in terms of future gazing then, so what kind of key, if I could ask maybe each person just for kind of one key change that would help with all these discussion points that we've raised around in terms of increasing value, helping with the price signals, that would unlock more assets, more flexible assets on our system, and get involved. If I start with Stuart, and then I'll go around.
Really very quick. I think it's revenue stacking. I think if we can get to the point where we can test the opportunity to stack revenues, that's where it might start to make a little bit of sense.
Perfect. Josh?
I agree with Stuart. Money makes the world go round. I'm looking at this from two sides. In terms of maximizing DR penetration and going carbon neutral, one is a push, one is a pull. I think the push side the push side is where I think utilities, including Stuart, I think looking at how to, while we enable market-based control, how do we protect the system reliability resiliency? Because I think that's where the basis of active network management and market participation in grid safe manners is key, because ultimately the control signal is not a direct control, as Stuart was saying, but a price-based control. So keeping the grid safe, that's the fundamental role of the DNO, and I think that's what we expect from the utilities as well. The other is the pole role, which is the economic incentive. So proper value, service valuation, and proper stacking, I agree as well. And understanding that and recognizing the value to not just the commodities, but to the grid. I think that's key for me.
Perfect. Thanks, Josh. And Vince?
Yeah, I guess to Stuart and Josh, I mean, yeah, it's money. Money's going to drive this. With Stuart's comments about whether or not the Western Power Distribution is going to be controlling assets, that's something that we put this into Bracebridge Generation thinking it's going to be a third-party type control. In Ontario, they've talked whether or not this should actually be a utility type thing, right from the Ontario Energy Board. So is this something that should be run by the utility so that there's more cost control on that? And as far as the LDC side of things go, if we can control the assets to defer doing capital projects, because we don't need to build a bigger system, we can just control the assets below it. There's actually a cost savings that can be had by the utility, but the utility would have to either have some input on that. So we'd have to provide feedback to the third-party controller or aggregator, or we'd have to be controlling it ourselves. So there's still some stuff to be worked out as far as how this is going to roll out long-term, but giving us visibility and sorting this out and us doing this project is going to provide great information and feedback for other people to make some decisions as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Vince. And I appreciate we're slightly over time, but Tom, last word, and then we'll wrap up.
So from my side, I think everybody is pretty much covered off the main points. We've got reliability. Ultimately, we've got to have a legacy system that we trust. We've got the economic point of view. People aren't going to do this unless there's a value associated with it, and it has to be done for the right reasons. It has to be done to facilitate a renewable network. But fundamentally, and this is something that I think as an industry we are accused of neglecting quite a bit, and this goes back to Kiwi Power's vision. We've got to make it simple. We have to make this easy. If we want all of these DRs to sort of provide that flexibility, then we've got to make it as easy as possible for them to be able to do that, and to be by providing that ease, we can make it reliable, we can make it economical, and we can make it green. And I think that's going to be, and that's when we're going to see a real shift in sort of how people approach the network.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. Good comment to end on. Make it easy. No, that just sounds so simple. Would make it easy. But no, that's a good point to end on. And I'd like to thank all the speakers that we've had over the session. Thank you to those. I won't go through individually. And thank you to Bays initially for doing their session. We will be sending out slides and the recording very, very, very shortly. So don't worry about that. And we will collate all the questions and make sure we try and get some follow up to you guys for those that we didn't get to, so apologies. Thank you for them. That's all we've got time for. We're slightly over time, so thank you for sticking with us, and hopefully see you all again soon. And that's it. Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much for hosting. Cheers.
Thank you all.